the 9th anniversary of one of the worst disasters in modern history, and honoring the people who go in to help people on their worst days. It's Friday, and this is the Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey everybody. Gosh, there's a lot to cover today. Tomorrow marks the 9-year anniversary of the terrible earthquake that struck the island nation of Haiti in 2010. Over 250,000 people lost their lives in one of the most horrific natural disasters of our lifetime. Haiti's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and the lack of building codes resulted in more than 90% of the buildings collapsing across the heavily populated parts of that country. Tens of thousands of people were entombed in their own houses, businesses, and places of worship when the massive 7.0 earthquake hit. The shock and confusion in the aftermath of the quake led many Haitians to literally believe the end of the world had come. As bodies were pulled from the rubble, there was often nowhere to put them but to stack them up in the middle of the streets, where they rotted in the tropical heat for days until people had no choice but to set them on fire. This is the scene I found when I arrived in Haiti 48 hours after the quake. It was truly apocalyptic. There were no utilities, no services. Tens of thousands of people were buried alive in their homes still, and there wasn't anywhere near enough heavy machinery to rescue them. Family members clawed at the rubble with their bare hands in a futile effort to save those trapped inside. Many eventually succumbed to exhaustion and exposure. Aid agencies rushed to deliver food and water and medical care to the devastated areas, but the scale of the wreckage led to logistical snafus that left many without food or clean water for weeks, and that led to a kind of zombie apocalypse desperation among the people that caused them to attack and pilfer convoys and even fight and kill each other for the aid that was being distributed. I've seen a lot of mayhem in my career, but Haiti is by far the most complete tragedy I've ever witnessed. It was a defining moment for a lot of people, both Haitians and for those who rendered aid. Next week, I'm going to share with you some of the stories that I told in the 2 weeks or so that I spent on the ground there, to honor and remember those who died, and to those also who gave whatever they could to alleviate the suffering. I hope you'll check it out and share it with your friends. All right, well, down on the southern border, the migrant crisis continues to unfold, with over 2,000 illegal crossers being apprehended every day. The U.S. CBP, or Border Patrol, and their officers are being overwhelmed by the numbers. And there are reportedly even more migrants rushing to take advantage of the crisis to get into the United States. The U.S. military has several thousand active duty and guard troops augmenting the Border Patrol and putting their manpower to work in many different ways. Today, I want to bring you some of their stories. So check this out.
I joined the National Guard so I can help my state that I live in, and being able to do that by securing the border, helping Border Patrol, it's been extremely rewarding. Operation Guardian Support with Border Patrol. What we do here for the UH-60 portion of it is we act as their transport to get them on station to calls that they request us to in a timely manner. We stage at an airport nearby the border. From there, we meet with Border Patrol agents that are coming on. What we do is wait for requests for air support from the guys out in the field. When they call that in, that request in, then we get called out, everyone loads up on the aircraft, they give us our GPS coordinates, and we go out to that area to help support them in the air. If needed, we'll drop off the agents, they can go do their job and capture whoever they need. The biggest challenge is just trying to get the aircraft ready to go because there's a high demand. So on top of having to work with Border Patrol and do their mission, we still have our own missions that we have to do, whether it's fighting fires in California or just doing our mission essential tasks daily as the pilots come in, just making sure the aircraft are ready to go. The facilities have done a great job getting the aircraft ready, giving us the hours that we can have to help them. It's just, this asset is a high asset that everybody wants. So just making sure there's enough hours for everybody that we can fly them in order to get the job done.
The U.S. CBP Air and Marine Operations Assets Division has what I'm told constitutes the 5th largest air force in the world. With everything from fixed wing to helicopters to drones to even blimps, they do a lot to help safeguard our country. But with more than 6,000 miles of border to cover in both the North and the South, the additional aircraft support being brought by the U.S. military is really making a difference. And now you're hearing a lot of rhetoric bandied about over Trump's border wall in Washington. He's agreed to compromise by not building a 30-foot concrete structure and instead improve the current barrier with an 18-foot metal post-style fence. That'll help tremendously, but it won't be near as effective as the original designs would have been. We're already seeing lots of migrants scale that 18-foot fence in California, and many have been injured jumping into the United States from the top of those. So the military is also helping with deterring those migrants by installing concertina wire on the U.S. side of the fence.
I'm Sergeant Joe Adam Brewster. I'm from Von Orr, Tennessee, a 12 Bravo combat engineer. I enjoy being a combat engineer just because of the great people I get to work with, blowing stuff up and placing the obstacles. Today I've been welding up pickets to emplace it for C-wire. That way we can help strengthen the border here and help out Border Patrol as much as possible. This is definitely the first time I've placed obstacles up on a steel wall. I've never done that before, so that's one of the pretty cool things that I've got to learn. And then I've never got to work with the border protection as well. I think it's awesome. Making some great connections down here. Pretty much the only thing that separates us from a lot of people is working with demolition hand in hand, and some of the guys I get to work with are definitely a plus side. I enlisted in the Army when I was 17 years old. I shipped off at 18. For me, just enlisting in the Army is something better than myself, greater than myself. It makes everybody back home proud, and that's the big thing. Is I love making everybody proud and serving this great nation. The Army's done a lot of things for me. Definitely gave me the encouragement that I needed to see I'm better than what I can be, and I can always strive to be the best I can be in everything.
Now look, the clown show that we've seen play out over border security is quickly turning into a horror movie. While the politicians in Washington wallow around in their ridiculous rhetoric, great harm is coming to Americans because of this wave of illegal migration being encouraged by the left. What do I mean? Take New York, for example. Mayor de Blasio just unveiled a program to offer free health care to illegal migrants that will cover 300,000 illegals that are already in the United States. What do you think that's going to do for encouraging more people to come? Now, we're seeing an average of 60,000 illegal and inadmissible immigrants a month on our southern border. 17,000 adults at the border with existing criminal records were arrested by CBP and border agents in fiscal year 2018. 3,755 known or suspected terrorists were prevented from traveling to or entering the United States by the Department of Homeland Security last year. ICE officers arrested approximately 235,000 aliens on criminal charges and convictions within the interior of the United States over the last year. 6,000 gang members, including MS-13, Barrio 18, and others, were apprehended at the southern border and removed by ICE. And there was a 38% increase in meth, 22% in heroin, and 73% in fentanyl in fiscal year 2018. The CBP helped seize 282,000 pounds of cocaine, 250 pounds of meth, 6,500 pounds of heroin, and 2,400 pounds of fentanyl last year. Each year, criminal organizations gain about $2.5 billion in profit from human trafficking across that southern border. And the immigration court backlog is over 1 million cases, and 2/3 of the judges who rule on those cases just got furloughed by the government shutdown. On Wednesday, I was talking to Tony Perkins on his nationally syndicated radio show, Washington Watch. And I pointed out there that the Democrats' refusal to secure the border is leading more families to be separated because poor Latin Americans are being led to believe that if they bring one of their children along on that treacherous journey to the U.S., they'll be allowed to go free immediately in the United States. So those who do cross illegally are apprehended and then given a court date to return for an asylum hearing. And with the backlog right now, that hearing could be 3 years in the future. So the guy that left his remaining family in Honduras and now cannot leave the United States even to go visit them, or else he forfeits his place in line, well, 3 years later, he's probably going to have moved on and built a new life and maybe have a new family in the U.S. by then. And wouldn't it be better to look for ways to increase opportunity and quality of life for people in Latin America, to make it easier for them to stay home rather than tear apart their families? A couple of years ago, I met a Pakistani man named Imran Jilani. in a migrant camp in the Darien jungle of southern Panama. He and 40 other Pakistanis had just walked all the way through the Darien in about 6 days from Colombia. Listen to his story.
Over 1 million refugees and counting have made their way into Europe over the last year and a half, garnering massive media coverage worldwide. But that same reporting may have served to ignite the idea of mass immigration in the minds of the masses all over the globe. Here in Panama, immigrants from over 20 countries are trekking through the vast and dangerous Darien jungle with little more than the clothes on their backs, all with one single-minded purpose: to make it to the United States, even if they have to walk. The tiny village of Meteti is one of the first places these refugees are processed by Panamanian immigration authorities once they emerge from the jungle. The worst of their ordeal may be over, but they still have a long way to go. Samuel Adeniyi is from Nigeria, where he was attending church one Sunday when the Islamic group Boko Haram attacked.
They threw something into the church, and some people ran away, while some they got burnt. As I was running away, I got burnt through all my body. I spent all here, I was like a roasted chicken.
Some friends found him and took him to the coast, where they put him aboard a cargo ship.
So the guy that put me inside the ship told me I have to hide myself, just like in the engine. I didn't know where they were taking me to. It was when I arrived at Colombia, then I didn't know where Colombia was.
There he found a large group of Africans planning to go to the U.S. Unable to speak Spanish, Samuel simply followed the crowd straight into the forbidding Darien Gap between Colombia and Panama. He had no idea what he was in for.
It was very, very tough. It was like a hell in the jungle, because this is the first ever in my life I will experience such. I never had such experience.
On May 9th, Panama's president officially closed its border with Costa Rica. But in reality, that's easier said than done. Commissioner Oriel Ortega has been given the monumental task of stopping the flood of migrants walking into Panama from Colombia.
We've seen between 6,000 and 6,500 this year so far between January and May. Over the past 5 years, we've seen a massive exodus of migrants crossing our frontiers with the intention of making it to North America. The jungle is very unhealthy. You'll find many adverse situations like sicknesses, wild animals, and even criminals.
These border police are doing their best to stop the flow of migrants, while at the same time caring for those who survived the trek. But they have a lot of ground to cover.
There are approximately 266 miles of border between our Pacific and Caribbean coasts. We are maintaining constant patrols and trying to keep a presence in every community in the area.
Despite the border being closed, hundreds of migrants continue to come through every day.
My name is Syed Imran Gilani, and I'm from Pakistan.
Syed traveled by air from Pakistan to Brazil and later continued north, hoping to make it to the United States. His trip has been equally arduous.
It's terrible. The journey from Brazil until here, it's terrible. In Colombia, most of people get robbed by police. Yes. They even searched me. The guy even told me to get naked. Wow. He took my pants off. He checked everywhere, you know, a person who can think and hide money. He checked, he knew exactly where to look.
Do you have a passport?
No, I don't.
So you came with no passport, or
yes.
Did you lose it?
I lost it.
Syed and his friends' troubles are compounded by the fact that they hail from a Muslim country. But they say the violence is what they're running from.
We are afraid to live there. We want a peaceful life, a better future for our family, our kids, you know. They think we are terrorists, but we are not terrorists.
It's rumored that the U.S. Embassy in Panama is vetting refugees from Muslim countries who end up here. But the embassy refused repeated requests for comment. Nicaragua and Costa Rica have also closed their borders to immigrants, meaning that Panama must struggle to deal with the continued flow without simply sending them along to the north. So far, no solution has been found. And in the meantime, these migrants are hoping things will work out somehow.
So tell me what you hope to find in the United States.
Justice, peace and justice for everybody. Everybody's equal.
From Panama, I'm Chuck Holt.
Now, I kept in touch with Imran as he made his way north to the United States through Mexico and crossed the border illegally and then was detained in Mexicali, California. He was put in a prison there for about 6 months before he could raise $12,000 bond And once he did, then he was allowed to go free. Today he lives in Chicago, but his wife and his son are still in Pakistan, and they're waiting for him to be granted asylum. But his hearing isn't until like 2022, if I remember right. Now, I'm trying to get in touch with him, Ron, to see if I can get an update from him. And if I do, you'll be the first to hear about it. Well, that's all I have for today, folks. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you are, please subscribe over at patreon.com/hotzone. I'll be traveling next week, but I'll try to keep you updated with episodes every day. So have a good weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday on The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.